Hey guys and girls, just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about Buzzsprout. Start a podcast today with free podcast hosting for Buzzsprout, easy podcasting software for hosting, promoting, and tracking your podcast. Buzzsprout is the best way to publish a podcast online for secure and reliable hosting to full iTunes support. Get started for free, no credit card required, cancel at any time.
Stats are for losers.
That's why we took the damn field. Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
This is what's great about sports. This is what the greatest thing about sports is.
You play to win the game.
Welcome to the Airin podcast. Welcome back, everybody, to the Airing It Out podcast. I am blessed and honored to have New York Jet Mike and Matt on the show. What's going on, guys?
How we doing?
Good, man. Happy to be here.
Thanks for having me.
For sure. I like how you guys are really relaxed guys. You guys seem too relaxed to be Jets fans. You guys are super laid back.
We've seen some. Yeah, you're the Cali guys. So.
Right.
Years of practice, just dealing with it all. But yeah, we're in the off season right now. Come September, we'll be a lot different.
Okay, cool. You'll be fired up and screaming at the top of your lungs.
Yeah. Once Darnold dapped us up in winter of 2018, changed our lives.
You got touched by the chosen one. You know, it's so funny. I find it very interesting that there's a lot of correlations between the West Coast and the Jets, and Darnold being from Orange County. I always make the joke that I was traded for LaDainian Tomlinson because I came out to SD. I think for a second that we probably got the better deal from the Jets side of things. But yeah, so you guys started this blog, right? This is in the midst of COVID, or how did that whole thing get started?
Yeah, I mean, we look back at it and we're looking at Jets Twitter, and it was pretty negative. And we wanted to, so we made 2 accounts. We wanted to write more than tweets, so we set up a blog, and then from there we got a lot of good traction. And then the accounts kind of just grew from there. We didn't really expect it to pop off that quickly, but it was a good start.
That's pretty awesome, bro.
BroadwayJets.com.
Yeah, no, I was checking it out. It looks pretty slick. It looks really clean. I mean, I always like, the Jet colors. So maybe I have some favoritism because that white and that green always looks clean. You know what I mean? So let's go some heavy hitting things. So Adams gets traded and Mosley decides not to play the season. How good is the Jets defense going to be without those guys? How good is this team going to be? I know you guys spoke softly about, Darnold and his greatness, but what are we looking at defensively?
Oh man, we're big Sam Darnold guys, as most Jets fans should be. But defensively, there's an issue, obviously. So, if you look at our team going into 2020, you'd probably say our best 2 players 2 weeks ago would be Jamal Adams and CJ Mosley. So then Adams is gone. Rightfully so, get him out of here. He's a malcontent scumbag who doesn't deserve, to be in the city, and I'm so happy he's gone. And it takes a lot to get us to that point. We kind of back the players a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But then it hurts because Mosley opts out. Obviously, you have Greg Williams, who is, somewhat of a defensive wizard, and you did get a starting safety in Bradley McDougald, which will help ease the blow. It's not going to be, I don't think, the 7th or 9th ranked defense like we had last year in terms of DVOA, but it shouldn't have to be if, Darnold takes that leap. So, plus the offense will help a little more. There's not going to be any Luke Falk games where, the teams are
that was terrible, bro.
3 outs in a row, and, it's nauseating. So there'll be less of that. There'll be more consistent good football. We have good special teams, So I think, we're not in a bad spot, even with those losses.
What do you think, Matt? Where you at?
If one guy can get it done, it's Greg Williams. I put all the trust in him to get these guys moving around. It's a killer. It killed your team in 2020, but the return we got, I think, it can fill in the hole with a safety. And I know he's more than that, but at the end of the day, he didn't want to be here. It was causing all the headaches in the world for everyone involved. So losing Jamal, I thought was coming, and I was fine with it. The Mosley thing, everyone was assuming he was the comeback player of the year. He was going to change our defense for the one half that he did play fully healthy. Obviously, he looked incredible. So losing that, I think, hurt more than Jamal. But our cap relief for this year and next year get better without Mosley, and then he's got to pick it back up in 2021 and be for a player for that contract all
The
time.
last spin zone is that, you could say, hey, we lost Jamal Adams and CJ Mosley, but it's not like they tore their ACLs, they're out for the year. You got a huge haul for Jamal, and you still keep that year of Mosley, plus you get the cap relief, like Matt said. So it's in a normal situation when you lose your two best players, you don't usually come out of it the way the Jets did. So it's not the end of the world. Which when Mosley opted out, I said, "Oh my god!" And plus, I'm also, like I was telling you before, I'm a Mets fan. Jets just going out, so I'm like getting so frustrated with this shit. But
No,
I don't
I
know if
agree, dude. I mean, it almost seems like for the most part, the bylines on, whether it's the Post or the Daily News, if they could squeeze us in with the Giants, that it's always bad news for the most part, right? I mean, we've been riddled with some, I don't even know, unexplainable situations. I mean, when your quarterback gets mono, when you sign a guy like Le'Veon Bell and you're having, supposedly disagreements behind closed doors and it still gets leaked out. You got coming into this season, Adams, I don't even know what happened to him. He seemed like such a dynamic player and then went like cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs for a real quick second. And then CJ, so it's like, dang, the 2 years, because it always looks like, man, you got Darnold. He's a strong arm guy. He checks all the boxes in the sense of attitude and personality. You're like, okay, you give him a scat back or kind of because I don't know. I kind of agree with Gase. I was on the fence. I love Le'Veon Bell, but Le'Veon Bell hasn't been fully healthy in a few years. And he's a guy that, for me, you're going to get maybe 8 to 10 games. Hopefully you get 12. Maybe you get more. But giving him the ball more is not the answer. And some of these offseason acquisitions that were done by a different GM, mind you, which was another weird thing to me, firing GM, I don't know, after all the money was spent, even though we still have a good chunk of change, which is shocking. But I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's cohesion in the front office and with the GM and in the head coach. It seems like a lot of guys are going into different directions. I've seen that tweet that you guys dropped, and Michael looked focused. I mean, Joe Douglas looked focused, but I don't know. I feel like sometimes it's a lot of lip service that they give, and then when it comes out to the field, it just doesn't translate. I hope we can continue. I mean, Gase is supposedly this, quarterback whisperer guru. So he's got to take it to the next level. And then you think about, Crowder. Crowder's had an injury plagued past as well. Our offensive line that we picked up and spent a lot of money on, some of those guys didn't work out and injuries too. So I don't know. Is it a training thing? Are we overworking guys? Are we not working guys enough? I mean, I'm really interested to see how this COVID season goes because I think there's going to be tons of injuries.
Yeah, last year, one of those anomalies with injuries that stack up that you can't really control. In regards to Bell, I think Mike and I are the two biggest Bell supporters, and I put 10% of the blame here on Bell. I think he could have been a little more explosive. He was getting back and do it after a year. 80% of the blame I put in the offensive line. I think they gave him no room to work behind the line of scrimmage, and then 10% on Gase. I think Gase honestly gave him top 10 touches in the league. I think he didn't completely kill Bell. The second and 10 runs killed us. That was the one thing Mike and I always came back to. But end of the day, I think last year injuries were an anomaly. And I think this year, hopefully everyone can stay healthy and Darnold plays 16 full games.
Yeah, and here's a tribute to our old GM that you mentioned, Mike Cagnon.
Yeah, he looked like he was doing some stuff. He was looking like he was architecting at least a little bit of something. I mean, we keep on switching GMs. I feel like, you need a 5-year plan. It's a long-term deal. Like, and as a fan and as a Jets fan especially, and as a New York fan especially, I feel like we're hot-tempered to use the word fired a lot, right? But you just can't build consistency like that. You know what I mean? And especially the people that have been in our division have been consistent for 15 years. You know what I mean? So it's different. Right.
First, Matt touched on the point that Le'Veon Bell was 8th in the league in touches last year. So, you see on Twitter a lot of people like, dude, Adam Gase did not use Bell correctly. He's got to use him more in this spot, that spot. Again, 8th in touches. He had 50 catches, 250 rushing attempts. And plus, when you're a team and you're just not moving the ball consistently, things just don't happen. You can't get creative. If it's first and 10 and you run for -1 yard, second and 11, you try to get the ground game going, then you're, third and 7, and then and then you go 3 and out. It just destroys your offense. Like you look at a game like the Raiders game last year, it just had a lot of things going. Bell was moving the ball on the ground. Then you start to see these end arounds. You start to see, they're pitching the ball back to Darnold. He's throwing it down the field to Robbie Anderson. You're seeing these trickery plays that work, which goes well to your point where, like, if Adam Gase can build his system, all the Jets fans are very keen on just blaming Adam Gase for everything. But, maybe they're right, but, who knows? You got to let the guy have more than one season, where his starting quarterback goes 7-6 with a roster that a lot of people around the league would consider very faulty. So it's like, to your point, it's not prudent to just keep firing everybody. Mike Maccagnan, I made a pact once Maccagnan re-signed Darrelle Revis. I said I would never say a bad word about Mike Maccagnan, but he was objectively not a very good general manager. And you look back at his drafting and some of the free agent splurges that he made at the time, you could maybe make an argument for them, but it's not very, forward thinking. So that's why the things that Joe Douglas are doing have been different than anything that we've seen. You saw Tannenbaum used to make a lot of big splashes. He traded you to the Chargers for LaDainian Tomlinson, and then you had John Izdick didn't really do anything. He's
I know, and I thought Izdick was going to be a killer because he comes from the Colts and he's like had built all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, here we go. Okay, the next coming, but it's like we get these pipe dreams of what could have, should have, would have be. You know what I mean?
So Joe Douglas this time is doing it differently. So a lot of the fans are clamoring for this free agent, for that free agent. I was a little upset we didn't go after certain offensive linemen, instead signed George Fant to this, kind of big deal, which is a little bit what you touched on before. Also, he has some injury problems in Seattle, and he didn't really play that much. But, I'm fine with what he did. He's building with depth. So, the Jets, you look at this team, is way deeper than any team that I remember of the last 5 years. Even the 2015 team that we loved and that was 10-6 was not very deep. A lot of guys stayed healthy that year. So,
yeah.
It's a different team. We have assets now for the future. We have a lot of cap flexibility. We have our young quarterback. The last thing that I want to touch on when you say, these teams need like a 5-year plan, is you don't have a quarterback. It doesn't really matter. The whole plan
100%.
is to get the quarterback. Now that we have a quarterback, now you got to make the plan. Like, that's where it goes. Right.
I was going to say, because I was looking at it, right? Because you see the Pats, they signed Newton, but they have a lot of cap space. And you got this, the kid from Clemson, coming out. If he's on the board, you think the Jets do something silly and try to pull the trigger on that?
That's my least favorite take of all time. I'm not saying it's your take.
Yeah, no, I get you. But it's going to come up, right? Like, I mean, we might be even ahead of the curve, because if this team starts to lose again, like they've been, the crazy thing about the Jets is that I tell people all the time, they're too good to be bad and too bad to be good. They're never, they're right in the midst, especially, don't ever bet against the Jets, because the game you think they're going to lose to cover, they're going to air it out and they're going to mess up some things. I mean, I think we seen that last season when they beat Dallas handily. Everybody was saying Dallas was going to the Super Bowl, and here come the Jets out of nowhere and just clobber them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think one thing too is, if you look back, I do think part of it is luck, right? In the 2019 draft, there's no team that really was a quarterback needy team to trade up to be the 3rd overall pick. And then we go to years that we have the 11th pick and everybody wants a quarterback that year. Trevor Lawrence, in my opinion, I think that is an odd factor. I think a lot of people on Jets Twitter, not a lot, but like a cult following, have this idea that the Jets go under 500. You need to take a look at them. If the Jets go under 500, you need to see what Darnold is. At that 8th overall pick, you draft a wide receiver, you draft another guard, you draft a tackle. You do something to know what you have with Darnold, because teams don't win after moving off a guy after 1 or 2 years. And you have the stats that come out with Drew Brees and Matt Stafford. These guys in their first 2 years didn't have the best team around them, right? Lions went 0-16. Stafford was banged up first 2 years. You can make the argument year in, year out, Matt Stafford is the top 12 quarterback in this league. And 100%. If Darnold's the top 12 quarterback every year, I'll take that. So I go at least 2021 season. In the event that Gase is fired, I'd like to see Darnold with a new coach. And I think the earliest you can even consider it is going into the 2022, 2023 year. You can consider, Darnold needs to make the leap right now. I think we all want Darnold to play great this year, but at the end of the day, you can't look at Lawrence for this specific draft, in my mind.
It's even it shouldn't even, like, it can't even be a thing. Like, it makes me upset.
I just brought it up because it popped into my head, because I know how we think as fans, bro. You know what I mean?
It's not your fault. Like, it exists online. Like, I just can't believe that people have that opinion, and some people do. And then how? What does Darnold have to do? Because look.
Yeah, I want that shirt, bro. It looks fire.
Some plays. Me and Matt and I talk about this all the time. If people are gonna come out and trash the Jets, they look, you just have no receivers. They suck. There's every ESPN thing has this like the 27th ranked roster. When the quarterback goes 7-9, whatever. Like if Sam goes 6-10 this year and has a solid year, like you can't move. What's the point? You can't move on for Trevor Lawrence, especially this guy's supposed to be a generational talent. He's the youngest starting quarterback in the league. 9,000 reasons we could list. 7-6 as a starter. The 31st ranked offensive line with no running game. The Jets ran for like 1,180 yards last year. There's like 17 running backs.
Yeah, there was a whole bunch of people I didn't know. I was like, who's on the center? Who's over here? I mean, it was a new guy every week, it almost feel like.
Exactly. Both the running backs have more yards than the whole Jets team. I mean, it's ridiculous. So give this guy time. He looks great. He passes the eye test. His stats are fine. Like, I don't know what people are. That's the one you were talking earlier when people are so quick in New York to move on. The hell they want?
Well, this is the thing, bro. You got Patty Holmes killing it. You got Lamar Jackson crushing it. You got Deshaun, Watson. You got Russell Wilson. So when you see dazzlers like this, people are expecting gold right out the gate. You know what I mean? And I don't know. For me, I thought even Lamar, when he was drafted, that was a reach. I think he might have been drafted like 32. He was a development plan for sure. Russell Wilson was a hit by accident. Deshaun Watson is probably the only slam dunk guy, let's say, because he came out of that big win game. And sure, you're like, okay, but at that time, we always are in, like you said, we're in different positions every time there's players or things of need. To build on your guys' stance on Darnold, I think we've already seen the recipe that's been proven, because you could say whatever you want about Sanchez, but they did give him stuff. And when they gave him stuff, he was a killer. Right. They got to playoff games. Right. I mean, he wasn't like so crazy that he was dominating, but they were a competent offense. Right. And then for me, there's a lot of things that I see, and this might be offensive, that I see with Sam Darnold that I kind of see with Eli Manning a little bit. They're soft spoken. They kind of let their game speak for themselves on the field. They're not kind of barkers. They kind of look like they're not supposed to be where they're supposed to be, but they still have talent. They got a rocket, So watching these two guys in New York, there's a little bit of similarity. I think, and then he plays for USC, which he shouldn't be no dummy to the spotlight, right? I mean, even though USC is not one of those killer colleges in the sense of powerhouses or in a division for college, but they still make noise. They still, they have a great heritage of people. But yeah, I think that we just sometimes get some raw deals when we're in the middle of a draft looking for some guys and we don't find them, or we need things and we pass on them. I would like for them to see, and you guys tell me, I would like to see them maybe get, if there's possible. I mean, I don't really watch college like that because I always get let down when they get to the pros. But them getting maybe a running back this up and coming draft, something high, or like you said, a receiver. I'm interested to see how Frank Gore plays as a veteran on this team, in the sense of leadership and showing these guys really how to get things done.
All right. Well, the Jets' current running back, that's what I really like. Like we just talked, man, I love Le'Veon Bell. Lamichael Pirine, good pick. I mean, that could be your guy, so that's, a lot of NFL GMs don't value running backs as high, so.
Well, he was picked like in the 4th round. Tell me about this guy a little bit, because I was looking at him. He was picked in the 4th round. Is he dynamic? What does he bring to the table? Have you guys seen any tape on him?
Yeah, so he's more of like a brute runner, but he has good hands, is what the scouts say. He catches the ball well in the backfield. He can block. There's a couple clips, if you want, from Florida of him just breaking long runs in the SEC.
Yeah,
fourth
that's a
round
good
guy.
division to play against.
Yeah, right. Look, you look around the league, a lot of running backs are 3rd and 4th round. So the Jets, if they want to conserve some resources, maybe this guy turns out to be, a very good player, because Le'Veon Bell, the good chance is that he's not going to be around next year unless the Jets do some kind of restructure to his contract due to make, 14.5, $15 million bucks. And that money is all his guaranteed money is done after this year. So, Gore, fine pickup. We would have been fine with Bilal Powell, similar veteran guy. Hopefully, I wouldn't be shocked if, Gore started off the season as the primary backup, and then maybe P. Ryan steps in a little bit more at the end, like 2009 with the Jets, when after Leon Washington got hurt behind Thomas Jones, and they used Sean Green, and the rest is history. They had a good playoff run. So, I think the Jets running back depth chart's in a good spot, and then I would be very surprised if the Jets don't massively try and upgrade receiver from now until next year. Got to be done.
100%.
High draft pick,
right?
Juju Schuster, big free agent. trade for Allen Robinson, like something.
You like Juju? I feel like he's sometimes absent-minded on the field, like most high kind of profile receivers. It's like if they're not getting the rock, they kind of check out. And I mean, last year I seen him play, and he didn't look like I drafted him. I think I drafted him in one of my fantasy leagues, and I expected more. But go ahead, I didn't mean to cut you off, Matt.
Yeah, no, I think Juju is the type of guy, right? When you have Antonio Brown on the other side of you, and you have to worry about Bell in the back of the year. I mean, I understand why Juju can pop open, right, and show wide receiver number 2. With the chemistry with Darnold, I think it's a no-brainer if you can get him for a second or third round pick. And at the end of the day, you just need dynamic players on your team. And if there's character problems, if sometimes it checks out, I think every wide receiver in the league has been at that point at some times. But what the Jets need this year is Perryman to pop. We know we have in Crowder. We know Crowder's a steady 80, 800, 5, 6 touchdowns. Like that is
he was awesome.
Right? It could be higher, it could be lower.
Yeah, he was very impressive to me.
Coming back in your receiving core, technically, with tight end group and Griffin had a good year. You look at those 3 guys I like, and Bell at the backfield, of course. You're missing that number 1 guy who can really take the top off the defense and change your entire team, and cornerbacks notice it. So you have Perryman and Mims, right? Not both of them need to pop this year, but one of them needs to have a good year. If God forbid one of them gets hurt and the other one has a down year, they're in the same spot as last year. So I think that's the most important. If I could take one group size quarterback, they stay healthy, receiver and offensive line are automatically 1-2, and I can make an argument that wide receiver might be more important. So
for this year, Sam can operate without optimal offensive line. But I don't think even if we have especially in the offensive line, you have so much depth. You could have made a case before Winters was cut that the 5 backups could be like a similar offensive line to last year. And we were happy going into the year. Like, we loved Ryan Cleo and Clay Joe Assembly, and it just didn't work out. Like,
I did too. I thought they were good. I mean, at least you're trying, right? I mean,
no, right.
Me something. Instead of just staying there on the sidelines and not doing jack.
Right. Proven veteran guys. But there's 2 things with the receiving course. So, number one, people don't understand that if Sam Darnold, so like, people go on Twitter like, hey, what are Sam Darnold's projections? And every person is like 3,900 yards, like 28 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, whatever. If Sam Darnold has 3,900 yards and 28 touchdowns, that means that someone's going to have like 1,200 yards. Someone's going to have 11 touchdowns. It's just how it is. Like, there have to be people receiving these balls. And the Jets have a lot of weapons. Like we said, that, there's 3 solid receivers. They need to sign someone else. There has to be, bring back Demaryius Thomas, sign some kind of 4th guy.
I heard they were in talks with considering bringing him back.
Right. Because if someone gets hurt, I like Vincent Smith, Braxton Berrios, whatever. Doxson is gone now. He's in Rwanda. So, he is. It's fact.
Crazy.
So, noble. But you can't have any more of these games like in 2018 we have to talk about this. The Jets played the Bears.
Oh, God.
Robbie Anderson. And everyone was hurt. Yeah, it was Jermaine Kearse and Sharon Peak and
oh my God, that sounds like a horrible wide receiving core, bro. No offense to Jermaine Kearse, but he was definitely past this prime coming to the Jets.
Oh yeah, this is the second year he's on the Jets. So it's like, it can't happen. So, you have Herndon, Griffin, and Le'Veon Bell take the load off the receivers. You get a 4th guy. But look, Darnold's going to have a good year. He's got to play 16. If he plays 16, he'll have a nice statistical season, and some of these guys are going to pop. It's going to happen. So,
no, I agree. I mean, it just makes the simple math when you put 2 and 2 together. I was gonna make a joke. Should we just hire the Pittsburgh Steelers scouting department if we're just gonna take on Le'Veon Bell and Juju Smith-Schuster and whoever they end up letting go? Because we seem to enjoy. I mean, and Santonio Holmes. It seems like there's kind of a little love on the low for Pittsburgh players from a front office Jets perspective, which is hilarious.
They draft skill position players very well, so I will take that any day over.
100%, they do a great job.
The Darius Stewarts and Stephen Hills of the world.
Listen, I was going to say fingers crossed and toes crossed because I do not see Perriman making the jump, and so I agree with you guys that we do need something. We need dynamic. We thought Le'Veon Bell was going to be that, but it seems like you guys were saying, when you start to think about the complexity of an offense, right? You can't even if you're giving Bell, pass catches, you need to push the defense away because you're just gonna have guys crowding the offense, the offensive line and trying to do blitzes. When you can push the defense back, then some of those, one-off catch passes go to the house or go longer. I think Bell definitely flashed enough to say, okay, we'll give you another shot. But shucks, at 14 mil, that sounds insane. You're giving this guy Zeke numbers for a dude who's
But think about it. They just have 30 million cap anyway.
right. They got money to burn.
It's not like we're cash strapped.
Yeah, no, that's the cool thing.
On Perryman Perryman is big, he's fast, he can run routes, and the big knock on him always was he dropped passes and then didn't target it a lot. And last year he dropped theoretically no passes, and he was targeted the last 4 or 5 weeks as the number one receiver. And if you average that out over a full season, he was in a pass happy offense with a quarterback who loves to throw the ball and a coach who loves to throw the ball. But I get why coming here it might not work right away, but look, if he gets targeted like number one and he can get open,
it's all on him. It's all on him, man. If he can catch, we're good. I mean, he, like you said, he has all the intangibles.
Former first round pick. Everyone always, references the stat. The last 6 games last year, he averaged 100 yards, 5 touchdowns. I mean, the guy.
He has shown flashes of brilliance. It just hasn't been consistent.
That's the only flash for 4 or 5 years since he's been in the league. But it's the most immediate thing that has happened. And, the Jets have those targets. The Bucs had Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. And, and Evans got hurt towards the end of the year. So Perryman stepped up, but they just have the targets available. Robbie Anderson's gone. There's a lot of turnover on the offense. But, Dak, he's got to make an impact. And he's going to. Like, it's going to happen. I'm not guaranteeing he's going to have 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns, but, I would be floored if that's the number one guy in the team, unless Mims completely pops, that Perryman's not going to get 800-900 yards. That would be a disaster.
That would be a disaster. Trust me. Not talking to you guys, he's going to be under my microscope. Which another thing, I wonder, because there's always so much pressure, right? You have the lights, you have the flashing bulbs, you have all of this stuff. I wonder if it's going to be a little different without fans, right? Like maybe these guys sometimes have a hard time dealing with all of that moving parts because I mean, sports are emotional, right? And if they're booing you all the time, you kind of get down on yourself. I mean, it's a long game. There's a lot of mental parts to it. I mean, if you've ever been to an NFL game, they're sitting on the sideline thinking about what's going on, right? So like they're having mental ups and downs. It's going to be interesting if even if it's filled with fake crowd noise, it's got to be different. I feel like the players might play looser. It might almost feel like a little bit like the Hawaii All-Star game. I'm thinking, I mean, because you got to get hyped and amped, right? When you're hearing people screaming your name and all that stuff, when you're walking out to the field. I mean, there's not. When you're standing on your chair and you're throwing your fan, your towel in the air and you're trying to raise the roof, you don't have that element anymore. So I feel like some guys who have a hard time handling that, it might bode well for them.
Well, last year, I think our schedule, when it came to home games, was one of the toughest in the league. And Mike and I have tickets. We noticed it right off the bat. Dolphins fans travel well, Bills fans travel well, Patriots fans travel well. They always do, no problem. Then you get the Giants as your home game. That's a 50-50 split, if not more.
100%.
You got the Cowboys as a home game, who they travel insanely well. Browns,
but they're the Browns.
And then you have the Steelers fighting for a playoff spot,
right,
coming to your crowd. It was a recipe for disaster. And then this year we're supposed to go to Seattle.
So I mean, the Raiders fans are insane also.
So I was looking at the schedule. I sent you guys a thing. I was saying 8-8, and I was being like nice. I was trying to go with my gut. Do you think they're a 500 ball club? I mean, they do got to play some tough games. They got to play Kansas City in Kansas City. I think even traveling west to play the Chargers is going to be a little difficult for them. I think the Niners at home might be a little problemsome or worrisome. I mean, that defense for the Niners is looking pretty good. So I don't know. What are your feelings on the strength of schedule this season?
I'll take one thing, and I'm stealing from you. If you go to a football game and you're not used to your quarterback is as good, if not better, than the other quarterback, besides Mahomes and Russell Wilson, I'm confident in every single game that this team plays. And look, I'm not going to expect them to go 11-5. I'm not going to say 5-11. I think you obviously have to look in the range between 6-10 and 10. I think the Jets are good enough. I think Darnold is good enough to make it over that 500 mark. So, it's very close. My team's going to go 9-7, but I think we're going to play meaningful games at the end of December to fight for that last cup. I think that's a high possibility. And if the Bills have one weird injury or they Bills aren't as hot as always, I think that's the team that we obviously have to look out for.
So, first of all, 7th playoff spot changed everything. Because if you're 2-4, that game has been much more meaningful than last year. We talked about the crowd noise and such. It helps us when we go to Seattle, for example.
100%.
Also, then they're not going to come to us. So
And Kansas City too, because they're known. They battle with Seattle for the record.
with the loudest crowd.
Uh-huh.
So the schedule, other than the Mahomes and Mahomes and Russell Wilson, like Matt was saying, I'll take Sam. Mano y mano. There are some. Oh, geez, not mono, but there are some.
Nice.
Not good. I hate mono jokes. I'm so sorry.
No. It's okay. You did it to yourself. You see, that's how much they stalking you in your nightmares, bro. It's just becoming part of your narrative.
So, that's like the Jets. The Jets are in a good spot because there's a lot of tough games, but like you mentioned, the Chargers, Sam Darnold or Tyrod Taylor, like going into that game.
Right. Come on. I was just saying about traveling west. Most of them known for partying a little extra late night, and teams that always go east to west always have a hard time for whatever reason.
That's the biggest game of the year, in my opinion. So you go Jets,
and you go twice because you go to the Rams too.
Right, and Joe Douglas is smart enough. He went to the NFL and he said, "Hey, look, we're playing these games back to back. We don't have to travel back." But I don't think any other GM in the past 2 decades have done for the Jets. But look, for me personally, if you look at the schedule, you start off with Buffalo. And then you go Niners, Colts, and in that's a tough stretch, right? Playoff team and the Colts are nothing
to laugh at for sure.
I'm so high on the Colts.
But you know what? With those first 3 games, I gave the Jets a 2-1 because you know what? I still think that Phillip Rivers, as great as he is, it's going to still take a little time. I don't know if it's going to be by game 3 that they're going to be cruising, and they still got a lot of answers. I mean, they got a great offensive line. To me, that's it. Their defense is suspect. Their wide receivers struggle to stay healthy, and their running backs struggles to stay healthy. And again, it's Phillip Rivers. He's due for turnovers.
Yeah, and week 1 in my mind, playoff game. Like,
right, you have to win that game.
In Buffalo, it's huge. Darnold's never lost there, and I'm just thinking to myself, if you win that game, you have the Colts Niners. If you won, that'll be huge. If not, say the Jets go 1-2 in that stretch.
Right.
You're getting a Denver team who's traveling west to east.
Right. Yes.
Short week. Thursday football. Drew Lock, right? I think Drew Lock is okay. He played obviously really good at the end of the year. I'm not thrilled on him being the top quarterback. I think he's going to be a bottom 3rd quarterback in his career. I hope he beats him by 50. So here's my thing.
I don't know, man. They sold me too, bro. I'm starting to believe in my guy Lock. I got him as a sleeper for fantasy, but that's deeper. But anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, look, that Denver game, if you're 1-2 or 2-1 going to that game on a short week, you win that game, then you get the Cardinals, get the Chargers, you have games that on your schedule. Every team that we play this year is not a garbage team. So
no.
You have confidence going into the teams who obviously can't start 0-3. That if we start 0-3, that comes down to how we beat the Cowboys, right?
Yeah,
on that Saturday or what was it? Sunday 4:25 start game. That's that Broncos game. So Buffalo week 1 in my mind is a playoff game. I cannot wait for that game. It's gonna be one of most anxiety-ridden weeks going up to it. I can't wait.
Plus, there could be injuries. There's going to be a lot of weird things happening with COVID. It's hard to.
Right, I agree. I mean,
who knows what's going to happen? We can go play the Colts. Rivers.
Yep. Right. Or they could reschedule the game. That's another thing. I mean, there's been times where scheduling conflicts and I forget how it works with Sunday night where they could flip-flop games. I mean, it's going to be interesting how if a team is totally plagued, what you're going to do if you can't play them, then you're going to have to reschedule a game, right? Like if they can't, it's like, dude, we need 22 dudes on the field. You don't got that? All right. We got to.
I'll put that call out because the stats that I talked about the most, and it was the first ever blog I wrote on BroadwayJets.com. The Jets haven't played on Sunday Night Football since 2011. So they played 3 games that year. And then they had a Sunday night game in 2012, and they were bad, and they got flexed out of it, and they haven't played since. So all I want is for the Jets to be 7-4, 8-6, and they're playing for an AFC East. Maybe they're playing Patriots at the end of the year, and they throw the Jets Sunday Night Football. It'd be the coolest thing ever.
All right, so since we're diving in, right, it gives me a springboard to go in. So how I'm not going to use the word nervous, but how concerned are we that the Patriots are going to potentially try to start Cam?
I think they're going to start Cam.
No, I mean, Bill is saying that he's got to beat out somebody. So I don't know if that's just,
I believe that, they'll try to have a competition with him and Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Cam, I'm nervous about Cam, and I was not happy when I saw the news that he was going to New England because obviously the guy is a former MVP, but people like to cite his lack of accuracy. The guy completed 67% of his passes in 2018 before he got hurt. So he can do it. Like Cam was a career 58% thrower, but the Patriots system, a lot of dinks and dunks. They play very smart football. They get the ball out quick. They haven't had obviously Tom Brady was good in the pocket, but he's not very dynamic moving out of the pocket. It has its other elements of the offense. I don't think the Patriots' systems are very good at all. Their defense is obviously littered with guys opting out, and Marcus Cannon, their right tackle, opted out. So they have a lot of challenges. They just signed Lamar Miller like an hour ago.
Really?
Like they're because Sony Michel is having issues. Look, I don't think the Patriots are going to be that great, but anytime if you would have told me that the Jets are going to go play Sam Darnold versus Jarrett Stidham twice,
Right,
or
that's a
Darnold
W.
Newton twice, I'd rather play Jarrett Stidham twice.
All day. I'm like, I hope you fuckers get into an argument and hate each other and you start pouting on the sideline and Bill just plays that dude because he wants to get the kid from Clemson. It's going to be an amazing time to like roast on the Patriot moniker a little bit.
I hope everyone's like, oh, dude, the Patriots are going to tank get their quarterback. Look, there have been teams that are trying to get their franchise quarterback for 50 years.
Right.
Like the Jets. Like the Jets literally have 50 years. So when people are saying, oh, this is what the Giants fans did when the Giants didn't take Barkley instead. They said, oh, we'll just get our guy next year. And they literally got pretty lucky with Daniel Jones. I'm still not completely sold on him.
Agreed, but he's competent.
Right, but when the Patriots say, oh, look, let's just tank for Trevor Lawrence, we're going to get Trevor Lawrence. Just because, first of all, I don't think Belichick wants to do that. I think he wants to prove that he can win without Tom Brady.
Right.
And secondly, just because the Patriots have not a great year, when they go 5-11, it means they're going to get Trevor Lawrence,
Right. I don't even know what the status of their draft picks are because even if they get, do they, well, I guess they could trade back down. I mean, this is what they do, right? I mean, for me though, in the history that we've seen in the short time that we've been on this planet, I have never really been a believer of a first round quarterback. Since 2004, it's changed, right? But usually the guys that you find that are franchise guys are the scrappers, man. And those dudes exist in later rounds. And you gotta be able to spot those guys. I mean, with now things are changing where you see, so much money being put into it that, yeah, sure. You're going to have drafts where you get higher quarterbacks, but look at the Browns. How many times have they taken a quarterback first round, like first overall, and it just hasn't panned out for them. So,
I don't know if I agree with that take so much because there are definitely some gems, like you'll find a Russell Wilson and Tom Brady's the obvious one. And you'll find guys in the second and third round. Very rarely after that are quarterbacks, and you guys like Kirk Cousins was the 4th round pick. But even the Browns took Johnny Manziel was the 22nd pick. Brady Quinn was like the 24th pick.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those guys dropped a little bit. It doesn't have to be the first pick, like you mentioned before.
Maybe it's the first round, like the first 5. I usually see that.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Because I'm fine with that because you'll see Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes was the 11th pick, and you'll have guys later in the first round.
I mean, Vic was a first rounder, right? And Roethlisberger, Manning, Rivers, Airin.
Yeah.
Was Breeze? I don't think Breeze was a first round pick. He might have been another guy that was, climbed to success. What's up? What you thinking about, Matt?
You look at a guy like Joe Burrow, right? He's the can't miss number 1 prospect, and he made a good point today. Because there wasn't a 2019 college football season. You're looking for a job outside of football. So you look at guys. I think for me, the biggest thing I want in my quarterback is 1, being smart, and 2, being confident. Because if you're smart and confident, you can make the throws. Every quarterback's good, and there's something about a quarterback that has confidence in everything they do. In the offensive system, and then confidence in themselves. And I think Darnold is really getting that after year 2. And he said year 1, he didn't feel comfortable going in the huddle with 34-year-old guys being the leader of a team. And you mentioned too, USC. He played in the Rose Bowl in front of 50,000 plus fans and won a 50-point shootout. So Darnold, I think, has all the confidence in the world now. I think he is a smart quarterback, and he makes those 1 or 2 throws a game that we look back and he can't make that throw, and hopefully they continue to die down and he becomes that Pro Bowler that we think he can be.
Yeah, man. We need some good stuff, man. We need some good news in Jetstown. It's been a go for a while. I mean, it doesn't seem to end. It all started when we got on Hard Knocks. That was a debacle in my opinion. Fucking chasing around Darrell Rivas to try to get him all that money. I love my guy Rivas, but and that's the constant argument, right? Like when you look at this thing as a whole, you gotta make the fans happy, but you also gotta kind of balance your checkbook, and you gotta hit. I think the NFL, a lot of it is luck, man. Some of these guys you sign and they're rock stars on one team, and then he comes to your team, he blows his Achilles or ruins his knee forever. It's I don't know. I get maybe the Jets should start cheating more because it doesn't seem like those kind of catastrophic things happen to some other organizations.
I think it's a lot of luck, but obviously they're really good owners, really good GMs, put themselves in a position that in the worst chance they don't get lucky, they still can win games. And I think you're right. The fans aren't always right. Me and Mike are dying to sign Rivas again. I was fine. He came back with a Pro Bowler for a year.
Right.
But also the crash where I'm like, you got to take Stephon Bowers with the 31st pick, and then I freak out when they don't take him. And like there's times as a fan I'm wrong, which I trust our GM to make the better moves.
Right.
And you're right, Joe Douglas. If we're saying get Jack Thompson, get Jadeveon Clowney, sign this guy, make a move on that guy. They're not going to do everything. I feel like Mike McCagnon was one of those guys that if we were thinking it, he did it. And you know what? I really am hard on McCagnon's draft pick. But if you look back the past decade, McCagnon's made the best two trades this franchise has had. Both better than Joe Douglas. You got Marshall and you got the Darnold trade. So I'm happy with McCagnon, the draft picks. You don't take guys from Canada in the third round who are like 24. You don't take.
Well, Shepard's playing well.
Look, Nathan Shepard, I know. I feel like you can get him in the 6th round.
Yeah.
My point is, at the end of the day, Joe Douglas is getting the offensive line, and I think you made a good point. A lot of it's luck, but the good ones put themselves in situations that they can win without being lucky.
I know. I just hope for us to continue. Like if we believe in Joe, we got to give Joe the time, right? You can't go to the 11-5 scenario like you spoke about, and then just try to burn the building down. I mean, if anybody's proven that in the NFL is the Browns, they change everything every year, and there's just no consistency, And it sucks that the Jets, for being such, in my opinion, a class A organization, for having so much history in the AFC and having Broadway Joe and being in the early glamour days of the NFL, that we've kind of been not there, and then we should be. I don't know. I mean, the Giants are great, but we should be fighting more for those back pages, and we should be, I don't think splashes are always a thing, because when you look at the offseason, the team who makes the least amount of moves is usually the team that's going to be better. So to bring up on the Jadeveon Clowney thing, I would like him. I just don't know if he's a handful more than he's worth, right? Because he was even a late bloomer, 3 or 4 years into his career, then he becomes a monster, and then it's just like, now you was a monster because it was your contract year. Like, are you gonna go cruise the button again? I mean, like, that's the thing that a lot of these guys, it's like they get paid, and then that next season is mailed in, And sorry, and you going right in after this, but Colin Cowherd, and I believe him too. You kind of got to starve some of these players, man. That's the only way to get, I feel like, the best out of them. As soon as they get that big payday, it's kind of like we made it. We're good. We're gonna just rest on our laurings.
And I'm gonna let Mike tag the Clowney part, because he's the biggest Clowney supporter, and he wrote a great piece on it. But one thing that Clowney too, right? Rookie year, injured a lot, banged up. He's had a defense that was a ton of guys that were flying around the quarterback. And at the end of the day, I don't really trust PFF for a lot of things, but as an edge guy who's more of a run stopper and still gets the quarterback, PFF rated Clowney out pretty high. And then obviously last year, he had another good year. So Mike, I know you're a big Clowney guy, so you can dive into more of the stats.
Dude, the Jets should very, very much consider signing Steve. They should. So I think Jet fans are very disillusioned with these more analytical stats regarding rushing the quarterback from Leonard Williams, who we always heard always almost getting to the quarterback. He has a lot of quarterback hits and pressures. And then before that, you had Sheldon Richardson, who was good, but didn't really work out, and Wilkerson. So all these guys that kind of turn Jet fans off to this idea. But if you look at Clowney's stats, they are elite. His peripheral stats. He averages about 17 quarterback hits a year. He averages 15 tackles for loss. People understand tackle for loss
That's
is almost
huge.
the same as a sack.
Yeah, that's almost like a turnover.
Right, and he's not. It's not like he doesn't have any sacks. He had 9.5 sacks, 9 sacks, 8 sacks. Last year with the Seahawks, he hurt his shoulder, only had 3 sacks, but a sack and a half in the playoffs. He he looked like a monster against the Eagles.
He was unbelievable, bro. He looked like a man amongst boys. I've watched that guy play. When he turns the fucking shit on, the guy's unbelievable. His wingspan is crazy. He could jump out the roof. He's smart enough to have ball awareness.
Right. Then people say, oh, he played alongside J.J. Watt. Why did he have more sacks? He only played half of his games were with J.J. Watt the last 3 years of his tenure in Houston because J.J. Watt was always hurt.
Right. That's another thing.
He was still a 3-time Pro Bowler. He had 5 touchdowns in the last 4 years. I mean, these are unbelievable plays. The Jets didn't have one defensive touchdown from 2013 to 2018. So, people don't realize these kind of numbers are very important. And it's not like the Jets are going to have to give him a 5 or 6 year deal. I think at this point, you say, here, I'll give you $17 million for 1 year. Come play. Greg Williams. Nope. Mosley's gone. Adams is gone. We need something. You need some kind of firepower. You can't just make great defense out of thin air because the Jets have some solid defenders. But unless Quinnen really pops, then your best defenders are Avery Williamson and Marcus May and
Jordan Jenkins, yeah.
Even like Pierre Desir. These are all like B-level defenders who are good players and happy to have them on the defense, especially for these good contracts. Brian Poole. But none of these guys are the star of a top 10 defense. They just aren't. You need something, some kind of infusion. And to go from Terrell Basham to Jadeveon Clowney is a massive leap. Yes.
It even looks like there's even some age on the backside of our DBs, so we definitely gonna need something. Losing two solid defensive players. I don't care how good you are at scheming. You need guys, and you need guys to make plays. I mean, hopefully in camp and we can get those dudes ready to rock and roll. But I'm all about it. I mean, when I see these things, bro, I treat everything like Madden. I'm like, sign them. Let's just go. I mean, what are you gonna lose, right? I mean, and I don't mean like just sign anybody, but Clowney could be serviceable for 1 year to kind of be, let's say a Band-Aid until you can figure out what you're gonna do with CJ, and if you want to dedicate more time to maybe rebuilding the defense, losing Adams, because this is the thing, man. How do you draft somebody and still, I don't know. I mean, a lot of these guys always want to play out of their contracts, which sucks, but. I mean, Jamal Adams' season last year, he was a wrecking ball, not to to quote a song that's not the greatest, but he was coming in making some noise. So now with the Jadeveon Clowney, I think it would be awesome to see if we can really, really turn it up because we're gonna need it, man. We're gonna play some serious teams, and we're gonna have. It doesn't even seem like we have a cool stretch where I think we play 3 home games back to back to back, which is going to be helpful. But outside of that, we're doing a lot of traveling.
Yeah, last year just didn't travel at all. We're like the least miles.
We never done. I've done.
I mean, I don't know. The defense, man. But again, like when you say treat it like Madden and sign these guys, that you're going like you can't have it both ways. We can't be, hey, we need a GM that's going to have a 5-year plan. It's going to do this, this, and this. And then, hey, like we should sign all these guys. But in a situation like this, where you have the extra cash, I mean, you might as well, if you're signing to a 1-year deal, go for it. But who's to say that he hasn't been offered, a couple 1-year deals and turned them down? So, if it comes out that the Falcons signed him for 1 year, $12 million, then I'm going to be annoyed if we didn't offer him that. But if it comes out where, the Jets say, hey, look, we tried to sign him for 1 year, $14 million, with whatever guaranteed, and he said no, then what do you tip your cap and you put Terrell Basham in there, but or Jabari Zuniga.
Jesus. So, yeah. Well, it looks like at least on the defensive side, the cupboard's a little bare. I mean, I sent you guys to, so it looks like for right now, I mean, Crowder, if he stays 100%, and Bell and Darnold, it seemed like that triangle offense was working a little bit when it was effective and when all 3 parties were on the field. I don't follow a lot of these guys right now because I mean some of the stuff, but I wonder how hard Le'Veon's been training in the offseason. Have you guys seen anything him posting or he's been going ham?
Don't say too much. He's like drinking 2 a.m. He looks ripped out of his mind. Can't even ask for anything to do with Bill's.
He put that thing up. He had like 4% body fat. He's got abs. He looks really good.
Wow.
He's a very handsome guy.
Yeah, no. I always told my wife that if I ever had a kid or another kid, because I have a few, I wanted to call him Le'Veon. because that name is so trippy. I've never heard a name like that. It just flows, Le'Veon. It just sounds like a cool guy that's gonna get some stuff done. I mean, I was a fan out of him when he came from the Steelers, and I thought he did good. It just seems like there was some dysfunction on that team, but I don't know. Hopefully, I'm always the pessimistic Jet fan.
Oh, we're super optimistic.
Yeah, but I'm glad that I ran into you guys, because you guys are always on the up and up. So I got to call you guys more to cheer me up.
Hell yeah, we have our guy. Look, we have.
Is that the most important thing? Is that how we dissecting it? We feel that Darnold's the answer, so now we don't have to worry about that position.
That's it. Darnold is the answer at quarterback. Again, he passed the eye test. He's a cool, calm, collected. The analysts love him. He's extremely young. We have our guy. So, from now on, the next 15, 20 years, it's just every year, go, 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 go. Win a Super Bowl. That's it. 15 years.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you got to be positive because in the NFL, you get 16 games in 3 months of your team's okay. And I can't, if I'm negative during those games or in the offseason, there's no time to be positive. When we look back, Mike always says the only year we went in looking like there was no hope was 2017. And, 5-6 weeks in, we were playing for the AFC first place. So you never know in football. At the end of the day, you got to be positive because if you go in the mindset that, once the Jets are 2-8, I'm going to root for them to lose. We get a better draft pick. And then you don't root for your team for 11 months. Like, what's the point of you being a fan? So NFL's, really different than most sports. And, in baseball, you can be frustrated for a week stretch and things can change. So you got to stay positive.
I mean, it's a little different for me. I really enjoy it. I tell people the joke all the time. It's like, I don't get too excited because, us New York fans, we get intense when our guys are playing on the field. So I guess I've enjoyed not worrying about winning and losing as much because I could just kind of chill. Because once Sam Darnold pieced it out last year, I was like, we are in a quandary right now because it's not going to be so slam dunk. But I'm very, very optimistic to see what we're going to do this year. I'm not going to say this season is a hot season for Gase, but he's close. Because
look, just go 4-12. Gase is fucked.
Really? You wouldn't give him another year?
It depends.
Right? Like, that's the thing. Okay, so if the GM gets 5, how many years the coach gets?
Well, Douglas Gates, I think that's a huge factor. Douglas Gates were friends before, and they think they have a good season. They're going to keep telling you 6-2 down the stretch, 7-6 with their quarterback. If something happens here where they go 7-9 or 6-10 even, and maybe a few games didn't go away, you lost in the last field goal. Darnold plays great. Gates is probably going to come back. But to Mike's point, if it's a disaster year, Gates is gone, and Joe Douglas is going to find a coach to have one last chance to make Darnold really pop. Because then at the end of the day, Douglas came in and he inherited Darnold.
Right.
So Darnold's going to go through 2022, 2023 at least. But the Jets aren't going to move off Douglas. They're going to give him a chance to someone else. Worst case scenario, but in my mind, I don't even think that's a possibility. I think Darnold's the guy for 10, 15 years, and Gates might not be. And I think we'll learn a lot about Gates, get great game plans in Oakland, against Washington, against the Giants, and we won those games. And those games were graded out of PFF saying the offensive line was average, if not above average. And the stat goes around when Darnold pressured the league average, he's 7-1 or something ridiculous. So,
well, most quarterbacks, when they're pressured, can't do shit, right? So that's like some of those statistics. I feel like even Tom Brady, when you hit him a lot, it doesn't work out, right? Like
it's partially scheme, it's partially offensive line,
right? It's a lot of things. It's a lot of things.
100%. So, but again, Gase, it just can't. It depends. There's a lot of factors. Like we said, maybe if Joe Douglas, he's a coach that he loves. Like if Joe Douglas loves Jim Harbaugh. And Adam Gase goes 6-10. He might
all day, bro. Wow.
I wish my soul.
I would too. That'd be a win.
It was a horrible thing, and we always look to get a guy like that. We talked about it today. Like the 49ers were poverty for the 5 years prior to Jim Harbaugh, and they were poverty for 5 years after Jim Harbaugh. So
44-19.
Right.
Kaepernick is his quarterback.
Right.
And oh my God, it's not going to happen because every year I feel like the Jets and Harbaugh are linked, and then he went to Michigan. They still were linked that one year, but I
God. Jets fans who are like, oh, we should fire Gase and hire this Eric the Enemy guy, who is an unproven coordinator. If you really want to say, hey, look, we should fire Gase and bring in Jim Harbaugh, okay. But again, too much. Everything can't be blamed on Gase yet.
Yeah.
You know, and it's gonna be annoying if the Jets have like everyone gets COVID or something ridiculous and go like 4-12. Then it's gonna be probably bring back Gase. But hopefully everything just goes normally, and as long as Darnold improves, then Gase is gonna come back there. It just is how it is. Like there's no way that if Darnold throws 27 touchdowns and 13 interceptions and throws a 3,800 yards and the Jets go 7-9, he's not gonna get fired. Especially they lose a bunch of close games, like play tough against these good teams. It doesn't really make sense. Like why? Like why blow it up?
So I wanted to circle back really quickly on the Darnold thing because I had it in my notes and I didn't get a chance to give you guys a little shit about it because you guys were gushing. What about my man sees Ghost? I mean, was that just a shitty part of ESPN or whoever covered that shit to air that segment out, or was it taken out of context? Because he seemed in that game like he had no idea how to play football.
So here's first off, we were at the game and we went to Dallas again the week before, and we're in the parking lot, and we're like completely gone, and we're just saying to ourselves, Darnold, great, we're gonna kill the Patriots next week under the lights. This Darnold's coming out game, and if you remember the game, I don't remember a lot of it. I remember every play from every game, but I can't remember this game because I blocked it up from memory. But the Patriots started the game with an 8-minute drive, and it just took the life out of the stadium. And when the clip happened, we got texted, by every friend and whatever. And I was like, I don't care really about the clip. I just want my quarterback to be playing better. He can be a meme. He could be on
Twitter.
For
sure.
Football games, that's all that matters. Mike and I haven't left the Jet game early in over a decade of going to them, and we left at the end of the third quarter. And we were listening on the radio, and it was really disheartening to hear Darnold rolls right, throws 10 feet over the receiver's head out of bounds. And I think it's a combination of you go against the Hall of Fame coach in a game where they had an extra week to prepare for you too, and you'd say to yourself, Darnold didn't play well. And you look at games, and I got called out one time by a friend after it, and he said, Hall of Fame quarterbacks don't have games like that. And I pulled up 12 Hall of Fame quarterbacks.
Yeah, I was going to say that's not true at all.
Of 0 passer rating. Darnold didn't even have a 0 passer rating,
Right.
but
it was pretty close.
It was one of those games that took. Who was the following week? Was that the Jaguars? It was a Jaguar game that was in Miami, I believe, and it was a tough 3 weeks, man. Me and Mike were always Team Darnold, and I think a lot of people still were on the Darnold train then. And then he came back the next 3 weeks and popped off. So, that was a tough game, but that's a game I don't watch the highlights from.
I think part of the bravado of being a quarterback is you got to be resilient and you got to forget the last play, and you got to improve. So with that, I have, like I said, I have seen flashes of brilliance, but that game definitely left a mental stain that I'm going to be a little bit harder analyzing his football IQ. But segueing into something like that too, because I seen that you guys also posted that Sam and Sanchez were practicing in the offseason, throwing the rock around. So I feel like he got a bad rap after the butt fumble, right? And he was a serviceable backup. He seems like somebody who kind of gets it and understands. I mean, he's also I don't know why we like to draft UFC quarterbacks, by the way, even if they are Sam Darnold. It's not like a great quarterback is coming out of USC in a while. But did you think that it was a good move? Whoever kind of helped that, if he reached out or who reached out to who, that they got on the same page and got together and started, comparing notes, let's say?
I think it all began because, Sam went on Sanchez's podcast and that USC connection they built over time. When it comes to the USC quarterback thing, I've talked to, girls from Penn State. If one didn't work out, the other one might work out, right? It's like there's a connection of I don't really care about them being in the same place. I think it's pretty cool, to be honest.
He's literally nothing.
And Mark Sanchez, all the me and Mike look back. I watched the entire 2009-12 season on NFL Network. They had all the games you could watch, and you look at games and you're like, look, Sanchez. Some games went out there and he rocket arm playing great, and in other games, right, you're thinking to yourself, what are you doing? I love Sanchez. I have the autographed jersey sitting next to me. And at the end of the day, you look back at Sanchez saying he was really fun to watch. He wasn't the best quarterback talent. And if you put Darnold in that 2009-2010 team, I think they're in the Super Bowl and they potentially win it. So
The Jets had an unbelievable team around Sanchez. I love Sanchez, by the way.
I know. I see now. I wanted to bring it up. I want to get you gush on it because I
Dude,
liked him too. I mean, to
my
start, what was it, 8 games in college and that's it, and get thrown right into the pros and be pretty much the starter right out the gate. I mean, he had a lot of
He was.
tools, but he seemed super confident. And then, like I said, he just backed up into one guy's ass, and that was it.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's,
I mean, that's the short term version of it.
Sanchez just wasn't that good. Like, it just is what it is. So, statistically, in 2009, 12 touchdowns, 20 interceptions, threw for 400 yards in 15 games, which is really, like, ridiculous. I mean, averaged like 160 yards a game. The Jets ran the ball for like 600 times that year, 2,709 yards. So, they just had 5 Pro Bowl offensive linemen, so all 5 of them. Brandon Moore would later make the Pro Bowl, who ironically is who Sanchez fumbled into his ass. But, so, I mean, the offense it was Bergershaw, Ferguson, Alan Fanek, and Nick Mangold, Brandon Moore, and Damian Woody. Really 5 unbelievable players.
It was
And then-
unreal.
Right, so in 2010, Alan Fanek will leave, but then the Jets get better. They bring in Antonio Holmes and LaDainian Tomlinson, and of course Jason Taylor, but that's on defense. And so Sanchez had a lot to work with, and Brian Schottenheimer was their offensive coordinator who loves to run the football. You can see him in Seattle now. A lot of the Seahawks fans get a little frustrated about it. They have Russell Wilson, but it's more it works. You control the clock, you control the ball, you don't turn the ball over. You have a good offensive line that could hit a little push. So I love Sanchez. I don't think Sanchez he was not very accurate, but he was clutch and he was a good leader. I think the guys respected him, and I have no problem at all with him working out with Mark. Love if Sanchez was a quarterback's coach or he came on in some capacity into the organization, because that's a guy whose attitude is unbelievably great. He really, like you said, where he gets it. He's like a funny guy. He's very chill. He's a Cali guy.
Did you see the quote when he was in Washington? And the reporter, of course, like, "Oh, you've had some ups and downs. What do you think about the butt fumble?" And he went right, like, I guess the reporter was like 5'2", and he was like low hanging fruit. And he was like making jokes to the reporter, and he goes, "Look, it was a bad play, a bad game where you're killed. I like to look back at the Jets, remember the good times. You not so much." And that's the kind of response that you get from Mark. And at the end of the day, he's now a Broadway Jets commentator. He's retweeting Mike left and right. He keeps liking his tweets. I was very happy for you, Mike, but I was insanely jealous because that's like the coolest thing that you can have.
Yeah, totally. That's God bless for sure. I didn't even know. That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
My girlfriend was the best thing that ever happened to me, and she was upset.
Oh man.
They told you that if you would save her or Sam Darnold in the fire, because that conversation.
Wow, dangerous. Dangerous. You might get him on the couch. Maybe get him kicked out.
I mean, I gave the right response, but I also made a disclaimer saying franchise quarterbacks don't grow on trees.
They don't.
You can find a girlfriend, but nope, mine's great. I choose her over Darnold. You can see,
Listen, I love it. I mean, it was you guys were talking about controlling the clock and the ground game, segueing from the Mark thing, and Brian has did a decent job as a Jet. I don't think it's worked out as much, like you said, for the fan base, because they want Russell Wilson to do the magic that he does. I mean, Vince Lombardi once said there's only 2 things that can happen when you throw the ball: either we catch it or the other team catches it. So it's not a good look. But I wonder, minus the butt fumble, to dig even deeper in our guy Sanchez, was Rex bad for him? Do you think? I mean, because we talk about some guys maybe landing in the right places, right?
This always gets brought up. So people say, was Rex, did Rex ruin Sanchez? I mean, I don't understand why people, especially 2009, 2010, when the Jets.
I would make the argument that he wasn't playing with really none of his guys, right? So Eric Mangini, I would say, built that team, and here he came. And so it was kind of like, I mean, maybe they drafted Sanchez, and then they got Santonio Holmes and
next year, yeah.
Right. But that was under his regime. You know what I mean?
They traded Braylon Edwards in 2009, but Patry.
Because I was mad that they got rid of Thomas Jones, and Thomas Jones was going to be a cheap reinvestment. I think he only wanted like $4 million. And I get it, LaDainian Thomas isn't a beast, but at the time he was having more of a downhill thing. So I don't know. I've seen some of the Rex decisions or under the Rex decisions, and it just doesn't seem like they were as sound.
The LT decision was much better for Sanchez anyway. I mean, LaDainian Thomas is a receiving back, and Thomas Jones part back. Plus you had Sean Green, and then Thomas Jones was out of gas. I mean, at the end of 2009, Thomas Jones ran 331 times. for 1,400 yards. He was second in the league in rushing. And then in the playoffs, we saw a lot of Sean Green because he just ran out of gas. And Thomas Jones went to Kansas City and like had an okay year. He averaged like 3.5 yards per carry. And then Sean Green took over as number one back, and you had LT out of the backfield. I don't think personnel-wise there was really a problem. You could say like the Jets kind of babied Sanchez, but then in 2011 they opened it up. Like Sanchez threw 26 touchdowns and he rushed for 6 more. So he has the record for most touchdowns in a season for the Jets. So you know, and he threw for 3,400 yards, but it never really clicked. You know, the guy completed 55% of his passes. 2012 just fell apart. Like without that run game to support him, you know, the Jets were doing a lot of play action in 2009, 2010. Like those are some of the most memorable Sanchez plays I remember. Is, you know, play action, fire that dig over the middle to Braylon Edwards, like play action, a little slant to Santonio. He was never super accurate leading guys, so you'd have a guy running a drag over the middle, he'd throw it behind them, he'd throw it at his feet. Like he just honestly, like, and I dropped dead over him. He wasn't very accurate. So I don't think it really was Rex. I don't know what he would have done to make him.
That's a really good argument. I like when I talk to smarter people.
Even the only last thing when Sanchez was putting Chip Kelly's offense in Philly, like he ran it
well.
He ran it pretty well. He completed 63%.
Yeah,
but he still had like 19 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. It was too much. Or 14 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. Excuse me, too much. So it just wasn't right. So that's the one more thing. What else could have been done? Spread him out and let him run a college type offense, and he did. He was okay, but the Eagles were, they missed the playoffs that year, and that Mark was like 3-3 as a starter. It wasn't, the best.
And from the Rex perspective, you got to remember he's obviously very focused on defense, very much how Gates very in the offense for all the time. Rex was I think a better complete, obviously, and the culture, that locker room was great. It was fun, it was lively, and he had all the faith in the world in Sanchez. What you want a head coach is to have confidence in your quarterback. And for 3 years, unwavering, he not only have confidence, you got a tattoo of the man on his body. So
yeah, that's true.
You look at Rex Ryan, I think, Mike said they opened it up in 2011, 2012, little quarterback controversy, right? McElroy, the whole Tebow debacle. You can't ruin a guy. You give him 3 years,
that's
he doesn't
true.
pop.
Right. Okay.
I love him.
That's fair. So then maybe did they pull the trigger too quickly? Maybe then on Rex, because he did change a lot of the culture and made people believe that they could win again. I mean, it has been a long time since they had a coach like that.
They didn't. It wasn't too quick because they gave him the extra year. People remember. So 2009, of course, AFC Championship game. 2010 AFC Championship game. 2011, nauseating. You're 8-5. You lose the last 3. That Giants game on Christmas Eve in 2011 changed the history of football. The Jets win that game. Who knows? The Giants win that game. They go on to win the Super Bowl. Then you have 2012. They just go 6-10, and it's a disaster. Sanchez has 13 touchdowns and 18 interceptions. The whole Tebow thing, which I never even hated when they got Tebow, because you brought in Tony Sperano to be the offensive coordinator, the guy who created the Wildcat. R.I.P. Tony Sperano.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
So I was fine with that. So in 2013, the Jets somehow go 8-8. With like a minus 95 point differential with Gino. But remember, people were saying Rex was going to get fired. The Jets were 6-8. They won the last 2 games. They win in Miami in week 17.
Exactly. Ball in the locker room because this is your football coach. We're not firing him.
Exactly. People freak out, whatever, and then we go 4-12 the next year. So it's like at that point it was.
But this is the thing. I always think about like again, to bring the Steelers back into it. When you had and maybe this is a thing of the past, but when you have coaches like Cowher and even Tomlin now. These guys get a long time. I mean,
did they miss 4 straight years?
Right.
Never.
So then, okay.
That's the difference. But I agree with you. I'm happy that the Jets gave Rex the extra year, because if they go 8-8 in 2013 and then fire Rex and then go 4-12 in 2014, I'm like, what the fuck? I want my guy,
Yeah.
And I love the 2014 Jets is one of my favorite teams ever. I'm wearing my Chris Johnson shirt right now. I'm a psycho. Dude,
I know that's another thing too. I'm like, we've had everybody from Brett Favre to Michael Vick to Chris Johnson. I wish we could get some of these dudes like in their earlier, heyday. Because watching Chris Johnson as a Jet was hard. It was a little hard for me. He didn't have that same acceleration that he did when he first came into the league.
Mike, you have the blog on it. Mike has a blog that he wrote of the best players to play for the Jets, not necessarily, what they did in the team. So you look at Brett Favre, Michael Vick, Chris Johnson, Frank Gore,
Matt Forte.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. So
Yeah, no, I just
Yeah,
seen one of the things. You have Curtis Martin 04 season, Harris's
that's
09 season.
so that's the actual best. I made a big
Another one?
compilation of the best individual seasons for each position by position on the Jets, which is really like guys who are great on the Jets. But then I made a blog the of the all time short term team. So the best team of any guy who played on the Jets for 2 years or less. So it's the Brett Favre, Michael Vick, Chris Johnson, Ed Reed, Brandon Marshall actually was good.
By the way, you
So-
guys opened my mind. I never knew. I forgot which one of you guys posted it. I didn't know Rodney Lott was like a Jet for like 2 hours.
Years he was pretty good. Running a lot of the starting strong safety on the Jets all time short term.
Yeah, for sure. That's a throwback. You don't really hear that often, especially but again, we get these guys kind of, it would have been great to get the Ed Reed mid-career, the Brett Favre mid-career. Like it's just
Would have been nice, right?
even I think Brandon Marshall, even though he flexed like crazy, we could have had him mid-season 2. I'm like, shucks, we should have took him before he went maybe to Miami or wherever. It's just some of these guys, but Brandon Marshall is Brandon Marshall. He's a handful. So
I loved him. He was a great Jet. Oh my God.
yeah.
He was unbelievable. 109 catches, 1,500 yards, 14 touchdowns. No Jet has ever had more than 93 catches, other than Brandon Marshall, 109.
Wow. So that's the record as a franchise?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Awesome. I mean, he was a baller, bro. It's sad to see that he didn't get to see more. I mean, he's just unbelievable. Some of his fancy moves after the catch, his yak or the rack, whatever the heck they call it now, it's unreal. Yeah. But yeah, I that's been always one of the things that I've always been sad about. I was like, man, if we could have just got one of these guys or maybe two of these guys. I mean, even LT falls into that kind of, even though he's still, according to you, had gas, it would have been great to get him a little bit more, primed.
The Jets, don't have a lot of star offensive players in their history. It's pretty widely covered, and even some of the star defensive players we've had have been moved. Like the last 3 All-Pro Jets
Right.
have all been traded. I'm sure seen that's very, people love to post that on negative Jets Twitter.
Jesus.
But we don't really go into the backstory. Like Revis tore his ACL, Jamal Adams forced his way out, John Abraham was a scumbag. So it's like, I mean, it's not always
100%. 100%. It just sucks that it seems to always rain on this side of the street more than other sides. You know what I mean?
Giants of get Michael Strahan, who's the nicest guy of all time, and he goes on Good Morning Talk Show with Kelly.
I know. It's like I said, there's a little bit of luck to it. So we're probably going to start wrapping up. I don't want to take too much of your time from you guys, but I wanted to ask you, so what's up with the podcast? I know the blog seems to be going good. Twitter's killing it because you guys are getting an amazing response and getting, liked and retweet by Mark Sanchez himself. So what are you guys thinking about launching it? Where you guys at?
Yeah, so I mean, it was great first off making the Twitter, and we want to make a forum that we can talk more about it. We make the blog, and then I think it was next steps in our progression that it made sense to put together, an hour show where we can talk about it once a week. We're gonna do things different though. A lot of Jet shows go through the motions. I can tell you run your show a little different. I like how you keep it more, conversational. But we're not going to break down every 53-man move. We're going to have a lot of fun. You can see our Twitter. We put out hypotheticals that are utterly ridiculous. And
I know it's amazing. It's really fun.
And you look at Mike. Mike is a book of knowledge. He can remember.
I thought I was Rain Man. This guy is going through the numbers.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I got to show you what this guy can do when it comes to baseball stats. But he remembers a lot of things, and I like to keep it. We both keep it very fun, very light. So we're going to start it off on Thursday. I think we're going to have our first kind of dry run on it. I don't want to give the guest yet, but we have a really good guest coming in for the first episode.
Nice.
And then see where it goes. We're going to have it on, Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So we'll see where
That's amazing. That's amazing.
You're going to have to make
what's up?
Making a for us. So
please. I would love to. That would be an absolute pleasure. I don't know if I'm more of a jack of all trades and dabbler of none, but yeah, no, that sounds great. Please let me know. I wanted to once we get off the recording, I give you guys a couple minutes. If you guys ever need anything or whatever, because I've been grinding away, man, during the COVID. So I've been learning a lot about podcast equipment and platforms and free stuff. And I've already dropped a couple grand on this project already because I'm all in. And, for a second there, during COVID, I got a little worried and nervous just because I felt it was morally responsible to try to put the light on me. But then, things changed and I was ready to gear it back up. But yeah, I got, if you guys have any questions on mics or interfaces or like stuff like that, because like I said, I've had a lot of bumps and bruises buying stuff and then realizing that, well, they make a free option of this or a cheaper version of that, or I could have bought this used or that. But there's a lot of growing pains, but definitely stick with it. Obviously, you guys have killed. I enjoy waking up to seeing you guys on the feed. So thanks so much, you guys, for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it, man.
And
That's awesome.
we got to get you guys back on for some baseball stuff too.
Please.
Since you're a Mets fan, so are you a Mets fan too, as well?
No, I'm a Yankee fan.
Okay, cool. So I was telling him I'm a Yankee fan too.
But I always say I would rather Darnold throw a 12-yard out route than have the Yankees win the division. So I don't like that. Just shows how much I do not care.
I'm with you too. I think the Yankee fan base is a little spoiled and they're not as knowledgeable as they like to pretend.
But the most important thing you can do as a fan is be self-aware. I'm not gonna.
Me too.
I might not go to the parade if the Yankees win. Maybe I'll go and get drunk, but I'm not gonna watch World Series and cry if they strike out.
Right.
God forbid the Jets ever make the World Series or the Super Bowl. I don't know what I would do the week leading up to it.
Well, listen, I might have a plug, so let me know, bro. I might have a plug to get us tickets to that game. We'd have to pay for it, but it doesn't matter. This guy, I got a friend of mine. His business is not doing too well, so hopefully they bring back fans, or they're going to be selling virtual tickets for $200 on your TV.
Let's lose bury me in the stadium. No.
That'd be awesome. Well, again, guys, thanks again for coming out. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Dustin.
All right, for sure. Hold on one sec. Peace out.